Hello and welcome back to Typical City. Old Big Ears is back. And no, I'm not talking about these. Johnny's got big ears. No, Champions League is back. That trophy with big ears. I can't wait to see Manchester City lift it. Once again, it is our trophy. We have to defend it. I think we have every chance of winning it this year. It's going to be a really exciting Champions League campaign for Manchester City because we are on fantastic form with regards to that competition in particular. Form that's being amassed by Manchester City. It's growing, the juggernaut, the pistons are firing in the engines, and it's all looking hunky-dory for Manchester City right now. But with regards to that Champions League trophy, we have gone 6 games with 6 wins in this tournament. But we are going up against Copenhagen, don't forget. So they are no mugs. We can't forget that, they beat Manchester United. I mean, so what? Manchester United, big deal. But they did take a point off Bayern Munich. Now, that is an achievement. Beating little old United, not that great an achievement. Well done, Copenhagen. You beat United. Big whoop. But in reality, taking a point off Copenhagen, the only points that Bayern Munich dropped in their group, the group which Manchester United finished, rock bottom, 4 points off Copenhagen, so it wasn't even close in the end. They didn't even make it an exciting grand finale end to their group stage campaign because Copenhagen comfortably went through, comfortably beating Manchester United, putting 4 past them, in fact, a game that finished 4-3 to Copenhagen. But make no mistake, they are going to be a very unpredictable side to go up against, in particular going away to their ground. It's going to be really tough. But like I said, Manchester City are on fantastic form. We have won 6 games out of 6 in the group stage. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. In fact, the only team to have ever done that is 14-time winners Real Madrid. So that's the level of competition. They're the standards we're now achieving at Manchester City. The elite, the top of the top, the creme de la creme of world football. That's the records Manchester City get their hands on nowadays, is equaling Real Madrid's. The only team to have ever done it in the Champions League has been equalled by Manchester City. And don't forget another record as well. 8 games Manchester City have won in a row in the Champions League, with that spanning back towards last season, of course, with a semi-final win and a final win against Inter Milan. Carry that over to this season with 6 games won in the group stages out of 6. Makes it 8 games in a row that Manchester City have won. The only side in England to have ever won 8 games in a row in the Champions League. Another record. Speaking of records, I'm sounding like a broken record, repeating the amount of records that Manchester City beat. We are amassing the amount of records we achieve now are just through the roof, making us top of the top, the envy of European football. But let's have it right. Copenhagen is not going to be an easy game. Like I said, they've already taken a point off Bayern Munich. They've already beaten United 4-3. I mean, scoring 4 goals is an achievement in the Champions League, regardless of the opposition, regardless of how little and insignificant the opposition are, as in Manchester United this happens to be the example I'm giving. It's still an achievement to score 4 goals in a Champions League game. It really is. So they're no mugs. It's going to be difficult. Manchester City found out last season that they are no mugs, of course, because we drew 0-0 away to them last season. In our Champions League winning campaign, they took a point off us in the group stage. In fact, we weren't great travellers in the Champions League last season. So factoring in the fact that we have won all 6 games in the group stages this year, and last season we won the Champions League having drawn 5 away games in a row, which is incredible when you think about it, to have not won that many away games. We weren't great travellers, but there we go. The Etihad was just the fortress which won us the Champions League, and thankfully we had enough in the tank to do the business in Istanbul. This season, however, we do seem to be travelling quite well. 6 games out of 6 in the bag, won. RB Leipzig was one of them, don't forget. So that wasn't the toughest of groups. RB Leipzig was, of course, the easiest in that group. But it's going to be an interesting game because I think Copenhagen, they do tend to save themselves for the Champions League. They've got a really inconsistent form with regards to their domestic competitions. In the league, they are 3 matches without a win, and that was before the winter break that they have over in Denmark. They're currently 3rd in the table behind Midtjylland and Brøndby. They were knocked out of the Danish Cup recently in the quarter-final stages. And they also finished 4th in the Atlantic Cup, which is the weirdest cup that I've struggled. I've tried my best to figure out what the bloody hell the Atlantic Cup even is. But I don't get it. I don't get it. There's 11 teams in a tournament. The tournament's finished. The most matches that have been played was 3. Two of the teams have only played 1 game. So why even bother turning up if you're only allowed to play 1 game and the rest of the league can play 3? I don't understand why they've turned up. They still managed to finish mid-table, these 2 teams that I've never heard of, finishing in the mid-table of the Atlantic Cup, having only played 1 game. I don't get it. I don't get it. But anyway, they didn't win that either, Copenhagen, so it's another continuation of their inconsistent domestic form, and they finished 4th in that table with 2 wins and a loss. With regards to the second leg, which is interesting, is quite a gap as well. I can't remember there ever being. It's normally 2 weeks, isn't it? But this is quite a while. I mean, the next time we play Copenhagen for the second leg at the Etihad is the 6th of March. So that's quite a distance away. And in fact, Manchester City have got 5 games between the first leg and the second leg against Copenhagen. 5 games. I'm pretty sure we've got Chelsea following this game at the weekend. I'm sure Brentford are in there. I'm sure we've got Luton in the FA Cup. And the game before we go back to the Etihad to play Copenhagen is the Manchester Derby. So we're going to have our work cut out for us in between these legs, of which we are going to have our squad tested. We're going to have fitness levels tested. Energy could be in question for that second leg. Hopefully that therefore means Pep's going to go all out and get the game done and dusted over in Copenhagen right now, because the form that we're in, albeit not scintillating performances, Brentford was decent enough to warrant the win. Everton was a bit lacklustre in truth. That first hour in particular was really below par. We can't continue playing like that and expect to keep winning games. Even though you've got Erling Haaland on the pitch who can score out of nothing. That's the silver lining to the performance, not the headline. I think that's the silver lining. But still, we won the game, and if we can rectify the lack of quality in our performance against Everton's first half, then I think we'll still have enough to beat Copenhagen in truth. With regards to Copenhagen in between, they've only got 3 games between the 2 legs as well. So they will come to the Etihad with a little bit more energy compared to Manchester City, but they do have a big super duper title game before the second leg. They play Midtjylland. The game before, the fixture before our second leg against them is against the team currently sat top of the Danish league, Midtjylland. So they will have to split their resources a little bit and focus at least, because they've got a title game the week before their Champions League game, second leg against Manchester City, which is going to test them at least, and it definitely bodes well for Manchester City. I can't see anything other than a Manchester City progression in this game. With regards to the leg, I think it'll be a close game. I feel like this got 2-1, 3-1. I think we've got enough to score 3, and I think they've got a goal in them as well. I'm going to go for 3-1 Manchester City. And with regards to team news, Lucas Liara is out, and that's a massive blow for them because he's been a vital cog in their midfield, has Lucas Liara. He scored the equaliser against United, of course, to make it 3-3 before they went on and made it 4-3. He scored the goal against Galatasaray, which sent them through. He is suspended, having picked up 2 yellow cards during the group stages. He's out for this first leg against Manchester City, which is the last thing they really need. Kochalava and Theo Sander are also both out injured, but that's it. Other than that, they've got a full bill of health to choose from, Copenhagen, and it's the same for Manchester City in truth. No concerns for us. There is one little minor blotch on the preview for Manchester City, and that's regarding Ruben Diaz, who is 1 yellow card away from a suspension. Now, I'd argue that this is the ideal game to throw Ruben Diaz in and say, you know what I mean, within reason, you've got to make it subtle. Don't make it obvious, Ruben. Go out there and subtly get yourself a yellow card. Because losing him in the second leg against Copenhagen we can afford to do that. I think we have enough in the tank. We've got enough quality defenders that we could play against Copenhagen at the Etihad without worrying about, Ruben Diaz is suspended. Whereas if he gets suspended in the second leg against Copenhagen, then we could be missing him for the first leg of the next stage in the Champions League, which is a much bigger blow. So I think that's the one concern going into this game, other than the result itself, is get Ruben Diaz on a yellow card in the first game and have him out for the second leg. So I hope that Pep plays him. I don't think Pep really thinks like that, to be honest. I don't think he's that He does. I don't think he lies too much when he says one game at a time. I genuinely believe that to an extent, a little bit, but I do think he looks one game beyond that, because he'd be lying if he said he didn't, because the changes that he made against Everton were clearly with the Copenhagen game in mind. Surely some of those decisions to not play De Bruyne and Walker and Bernardo Silva against Everton, that was a high-risk manoeuvre from Pep Guardiola. He was bold with his changes, and thankfully the players eventually came onto the pitch and won us the game. And I think that gives us a clue as to what his intentions are for this game. So I like to think he's going to go really strong against Copenhagen for the first leg. But let's have a quick look at the predicted starting 11s. I'm going to start with Copenhagen. Grabaris going to start in goal for Copenhagen. And who've they got right back? Ankersen is going to be at right back. Vavro is going to be at centre back. And Elias Yellart is going to be at left back. Similar to what we saw throughout this Champions League campaign so far this season, as well as Deeks going to be alongside Vavro. In front of them, they're going to have a tight, compact 4-3-3 midfield with three strong midfielders, but Lalaria is not going to be one of them, luckily for Manchester City. But Oscar Højlund is, I would guess. It might not be him. There is other options for Copenhagen, but I'm going to go with Oscar Højlund, and that name that might sound familiar, yes, he is the brother of Rasmus Højlund, who is doing a pretty good job at United, in fairness to him. He's doing all right. But not quite as well as... he's a bit of a Wish.com, isn't he, Rasmus Højlund? Wish.com Haaland, a bit of a knockoff Erling Haaland, isn't he? Like, it looks all right, does the business, but he's not the creme de la creme of Erling Haaland, is he? Let's have it right. Rasmus, speaking of Rasmus Folks is going to be in the middle of the park with Goncalves as the left side of that very narrow midfield three. Up front is going to be Victor Claesson. He's a threat, a genuine threat to keep an eye on. Elianusi at right wing, as well as Achuri. Elias Achuri going as the left wing, which should probably start to look something more like this, in truth, with a bit more of a Christmas tree formation. Compact, tight, difficult to break down in midfield. I imagine that's how the formation for Copenhagen will eventually start to look as the game pans out. With regards to Manchester City, I think Ederson starts in goal. I'm going to go with Kyle Walker. Don't forget what I said with looking back at the Everton game, factoring that in. Those are the clues. I think Kyle Walker didn't start, Kevin De Bruyne didn't start, Bernardo Silva didn't start, Akanji came off, Gvardiol didn't even get a single minute. Those details are what I tend to use looking into my next prediction for the next starting 11. And with that in mind, Kyle Walker is likely to start. I want to see Ruben Diaz start just to get himself booked, although he played the 90 minutes against Everton and he played really well against Everton, I thought. I want to see Akanji in there because he came off against Everton at the 57th minute. Akanji comes off, which is fine. He didn't have his greatest game, but now it's case go and get some form against Copenhagen. He's got, he played a half an hour less than the rest of the team did against Everton, so that might be another clue as to who starts in this game. John Stones played the full 90 against Everton. Do you want to risk John Stones for this game? I think that's because his injury record is getting terrible, to be honest, isn't it? So I want to factor that in and why Pep might be wrapping him up in cotton wool for this game. Gvardiol didn't play a minute against Everton, could probably play the full 90 this time round. Rodri has to start, even though it's a case of, it's Champions League. And Rodri does play a lot of minutes, almost too much. Last season, we were risking a little bit of burnout with Rodri. But the guy's not lost a game in a year, so you play him, and there's nothing to worry about. And this is the game we don't want to lose. Don't lose this game. Played Rodri, and that won't happen, because it never happens when Rodri plays. He's gone a year without losing a bloody game. The guy's ridiculous. In front of them, I'm going to go with Kevin De Bruyne, who also had to come on to rectify the situation against Everton. I think Phil Foden could start. He might be rested because he's played a lot of minutes lately, but I still think he's got enough in the tank to play this game. Phil Foden. I'm going to go with Jack Grealish on the left, who I want to see play the game and play well, because his form has not been great. It's not been great lately. He has been out injured. He's been in and out of the starting 11 thanks to Doku. He's got 7 Premier League starts to his name this season. So it's not really been the greatest season for Jack Grealish, but he could turn it round. He needs to do better than he did in his little substitution cameo appearance against Everton, which was far from good enough. But, stick with him. We know what he's capable of. He's capable of turning things around, and hopefully he can start that turnaround against Copenhagen. So I'm going to stick him on the left. On the right, I'm going to go for Bernardo Silva, who again he's another player that had to come on against Everton, and Erling Haaland up top. So no place for Julian Alvarez in this team, who has been playing a lot of minutes, could be due a rest. In truth, how the game pans out with regards to City, I imagine the heat map would start to look something a little bit more like this, with Rodri and Phil Foden pushing up to get close to Erling Haaland, Jack Grealish offering some width, but Bernardo Silva tucking inside, Rodri offering that single pivot, and Kyle Walker probably sitting here for the majority of the game with a bit more of a flat back three, and Manchester City's midfield being a little bit more compact like that, and Kyle Walker and Jack Grealish are the two players offering the width for Manchester City. My prediction is 3-1 Manchester City. I imagine Erling Haaland's probably going to get himself a goal in this game. What's your predictions? I will be doing a watch along as well, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock UK kickoff time. Come and join me for that one. Really exciting start, or resuming our title of the Champions of Europe defence. We can do it, Blues. We can absolutely do it. What do you think? What are your predictions? Get in the comments below. Give me your predictions for this game, and come and join me for the watch along tomorrow night. It's going to be a feisty one, and I'll see you in the next one.